This is Nantucket by Design, Palm Beach edition. And welcome. It's so wonderful to be here in Palm Beach, especially coming from New York City where it's snowing and freezing. And you all have it figured out. That's what I've decided. But I'm so happy to be here and see so many familiar faces. And I also want to thank the Colony again for having us. It's a spectacular room. It's the perfect setting. And I can tell by all your smiling faces that we all love to be here. So thank you, and I want to introduce Niles, who is the director of the Nantucket Historical Association. I'm actually the president of the board, and I have the pleasure of working with him quite closely, and we have had a great deal of fun. So
well,
Niles?
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you, Annabelle. It is great to be back here again in Palm Beach. As Annabelle indicated, it's a wonderful time of year to get off Nantucket, I can tell you right now. It's been a very cold, snowy winter, unusually so. Fun to be here. Thanks again to the Colony. Just such a lovely spot, and great to be doing this again. I also want to thank Woodmeister, I know, our longtime supporters for Nantucket by Design, as well as William Ravis. Thank you very much for your support. You'll be hearing more about Nantucket by Design. You'll be meeting our great co-chairs, Bill and Marla, who are going to be coming up in just a minute. So thanks to both of you for all of your work to make this happen. Woo! The NHA is now 130 years old and a real cornerstone of the Nantucket community. And we collect and preserve Nantucket artifacts and stories. And one of the stories that we're really excited about this year, which I think is going to have a great connection with Nantucket by Design, is our new exhibit called Behind the Seams. And it's a history of textiles on Nantucket. So you'll be, when you come to Nantucket and visit this summer, you'll be able to see that exhibit. Over 150 artifacts from our great collection of clothing and blankets and on and on and on, made on the island, imported to the island, some fantastic stories associated with it. So I hope you'll come and visit.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Nantucket by Design on the Road event at the Colony. We're very, very excited to be here, and we're very excited to welcome our amazing panelists and speakers today. We are thrilled that the NHA is getting the opportunity to pop up here and tell a little bit about our story and continue to build on our Nantucket meets Palm Beach community.
And we are so appreciative of your continued support. This event was just an idea, a year or so ago, and here we all are again, so this is fabulous.
It's wonderful. So I have the honor of introducing Tommy Hilfiger. And normally I don't do cheat sheets, but I'm going to do it this time because I want to make sure he's such an incredible career. I want to make sure I hit on all the amazing points. So since 1985, Tommy Hilfiger has built one of the world's most recognized premium lifestyle brands, so synonymous and in celebration of classic American style with a modern twist. As principal designer, Hilfiger continues to lead the brand, offering high-quality collections under Tommy Hilfiger and Tommy Jeans, spanning apparel, accessories, footwear, fragrance, and home goods. Hilfiger's fashion journey began in 1969 when he opened People's Place in his hometown of Elmira, New York. A decade later, in 1985, he moved to Manhattan to pursue fashion design, launching his namesake brand with a single menswear collection. Since then, the brand has achieved global acclaim, generating $9 billion in retail sales in 2023. But beyond fashion, Hilfiger is a dedicated philanthropist, supporting initiatives like Next for Autism, Race to Erase MS, and AMFAR, while advocating for inclusive and sustainable fashion and beyond. And Bill, do you want to borrow this?
Yeah. So I have the pleasure of introducing a new friend and someone whose design work I've admired for a long time, Cindy Rinfret. Cindy is the principal of Rinfret Ltd. Out of Greenwich, Connecticut, with an office in Palm Beach here as well. Cindy's well known for her work in Greenwich. She's done several books with Rizzoli about Greenwich style, which I think many of you will have seen along the way. Cindy has graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design. She spent some time, which I thought was interesting, at the University of Copenhagen. I don't think I've known anybody from there. Rinfret is highly respected in the design community. She's regularly published in shelter magazines, including Harper's Bazaar, Traditional Home, House Beautiful. She's won many, many awards, including one from New England Home Magazine. She was inducted into the New England Home Hall of Fame several years ago. Many of you who were here last year probably had an opportunity to go to the Kips Bay Show House. Cindy did a fabulous seashell bedroom, and the bedroom had a name, which I'm going to challenge you all to say, because I had trouble with it, the Seashell Sanctuary. But really, I think it was an iconic room, a fabulous job. Also, as a proud father myself, I wanted to give a shout out to Cindy's daughter, Taylor. Taylor was recently made a partner in the firm. She was also named by House Beautiful to their 2024 New Wave class, which celebrates up-and-coming designers. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Tommy and Cindy to the stage, and we'd like to hear from them about their careers, their creative journeys, their past, present, and hopefully future collaborations.
So I'm going to tell you a few things about Tommy that you might not know, but Tommy is one of 9 children, and he has 7 children of his own. So when we were designing his 21,000 square foot house in Palm Beach, people say, why does somebody need a house 21,000 square feet? Well, Tommy does, because you can imagine exponentially what that means between brothers, sisters, friends. And so this house gets really well used. And it is one of these iconic houses. It was a John Volk house, and it has a tunnel under South Ocean Boulevard. It has a pool house, tennis court, guest house, fabulous swimming pool. And Tommy has this, he collects a lot of things, which we'll talk about later in the talk, but he loves architecture and the whole process of transformation. So why this house, Tommy?
We bought a house in 2017, but never moved in. It was damaged by the hurricane, and when we started looking at it and thinking about redoing it, we didn't think it was the exact location we wanted to be in. So we sold it, and we began looking during COVID. There wasn't a lot here because the inventory was pretty low, but the Uber broker, Christian Engel, found this house, and we liked the idea that there was a lake in the back and an ocean in the front with a tunnel under the road to go to the ocean. We also liked the fact that it was going to be a project. We didn't realize how complicated the project would be when we started, but after we bought it, we called Cindy and said, Cindy, are you up for another project? Because how many projects have we done?
18.
18 projects.
So we first met when I was 29 years old in Greenwich. I had a store, and one of the first people that walked in was Tommy, and my assistant said, do you know who that is? And I'm like, I don't know, And this was before Tommy when did you go public? Because I think this was right at the time when your business really exploded.
I think early 90s, I think.
Yeah, so this was about 90,
92, 91, 92.
Our children are all about the same age, and that's how I always remember the dates. So anyway, so I was on my way I was in Balducci's in my car, and I get this phone call. And Tommy said, are you sitting down? And I said, well, I'm actually driving. And he said, I just found a new house that this is my house. This is the house that we're going to, move to Palm Beach, and it's a big project. Well, it was a very big project.
But we're, I would say, 99.9% there.
Yeah.
I think pretty much finished. I was attracted to Cindy's taste level in the beginning, but her work ethic is on another level because she's available 24/7. She was on top of the project with her team, and she's also a detail fanatic as we are. So she's pretty tough with the contractors. She's nobody's fool, I guess you could say. So she knows what she wants and how she wants it to end up. But we collaborate together because we have, my wife Dee and I have very specific taste, and we knew we wanted this to be a certain way. When we bought the penthouse in the Plaza in New York, it was a white box. And we said, we want to bring it back to the old world Plaza. So we went to work over
That was a very fun project.
a
but-
2.5 or 3 year
Yeah,
period.
all these projects are like 3 years, it seems. But Tommy duplexed this, so we bought 2 apartments, and if you're at the Plaza Hotel, when you look out and you see the turret on the side that overlooks Central Park, that was the apartment. So this was an iconic apartment. I mean, as a designer, what a dream project for me. And they duplexed 2 floors, so it had how many bedrooms? 4?
Four bedrooms.
4 bedrooms, and room service, which was really good.
Room service from the hotel,
Yeah.
which was good. But the location was great. The views were great.
Yeah, kind of.
But the restrictions in building and working in the middle of Manhattan wasn't really easy, but we accomplished it. It was a success.
One of my favorite stories was, and this is where Tommy's Rolodex comes in handy. There's a turret room, and it's got this beautiful brick original ceiling, and Tommy had bought some light fixtures from the New York Times, I believe. Were those fixtures?
The New York Times moved locations from 43rd Street to somewhere in the area, and they auctioned off a lot of their belongings, a lot of their fixtures and furniture at, I think, Sotheby's or Christie's. But anyway, we bought some lanterns, and we bought...
The sign? The sign in your
The New York
library?
Times sign.
Yeah. So this is where the iconic thing is, that Tommy loves to perpetuate the history and not have it be lost. And that's really important. One of the histories of the Plaza, of course, is Hilary Knight, who wrote Eloise at the Plaza. So, one of my favorite stories, and I feel blessed to be able to, hey, we're going to do a mural in this room. So Tommy picks up the phone and calls Hilary Knight. So I spent a month with Hilary Knight, and we did this whole mural that was sort of like Bemelman's bar, but it had Tommy's faces in it and the kids' faces in it and all sorts of things hidden that you would find. And I got to sit with Hilary Knight and watch him paint for a month. And then he signed a book to my daughter. So that was one of my favorite moments, I think, of that project.
He was very talented. Actually, he still is very talented, but I'm not sure he's working now. But
And how about the photographs that you found?
oh, we found great
The
photographs.
photographs of the ball, Truman Capote's bar.
Truman Capote's black and white ball. We found incredible photographs, and
So we lacquered the dining room all black in mirrors, and we had all the black and white photos.
Exactly. Well, I had Mick Jagger come for dinner one night, and Mick said they used to stay in the Plaza when the Rolling Stones would come to New York on tour. They would stay in the Plaza until they were kicked out in 1970.
As any good rock
So
band
this
should be.
This is the first time, he said, this is the first time I've visited since I was kicked out. So I guess they used to take over an entire floor and party for days in between their concerts at Madison Square Garden.
I think you still do that in that apartment, didn't you? Carry on the
That was a bit of a
traditions?
stretch.
No, that was a great apartment, and one of the things that's also fun, it's like, we need some art. So Tommy goes to his collections, and we've got 3 Warhols, and the Elizabeth Taylor Warhol, and the Marilyn Monroe Warhol, and so it's really fun to be able to go through some of his inventory. Some of the other inventory things that Tommy has, which, this is all about collecting, and what our business as designers is collecting resources, collecting craftsmen. Barbara Tattersfield over here is one of our great craftsmen. She does incredible coral work. And this is what you're buying when you hire a designer. It's our collection of people and our collection of sources. And like Tommy and his business, comparing fashion to interiors, you have that room where you collected all these iconic pieces of fashion apparel from, for example, his office in Palm Beach. We said we were building this beautiful Tommy office. It's all red, white, and blue, and it's quite spectacular. And I said, oh, we need some art. And so the shadow box with Marilyn Monroe's blue jeans comes out. How did you get that? How did you get that? I mean, like, this is the real deal. I'm sitting here like, oh my God, look, could I fit in these? Like,
We have an archive in New York of about 25,000 square feet with most of what we've designed over the years, one of everything. And we also collect interesting vintage clothes from wherever. So all of our designers who work for us use that archive as inspiration. But the Maryland jeans were bought at a Christie's auction in the 90s. I bought 3 pairs. I gave Naomi Campbell 1 pair as a gift. I gave Britney Spears 1 pair as a gift, and we kept 1 pair. But we're auctioning those off
I didn't get one.
soon for charity.
Well, what is the icon? Is that the iconic piece of apparel that you've found in your day? Is that the one that, you know, is the most interesting, or is there?
We have a lot of interesting pieces because over the years we've done different collaborations with people. I mean, most recently Zendaya, Gigi Hadid, Lewis Hamilton, the race car driver, Shawn Mendes. But in earlier years, we designed clothes for a lot of musicians and celebrities, everyone from Beyonce to Lenny Kravitz to David Bowie and Iman, and a lot of people in the music business and in the, I would say, in the zeitgeist. So a lot of celebrities we've dressed, they've been on our runways, they've been on our ad campaigns. So we have also a section of the archive of clothing we've designed for the Met Ball, the people going to the Met Ball, including ourselves. And those are maybe the most precious pieces. We did a dress for Zendaya, and as a former Disney star, she wanted to look a bit like a princess, and we had to put mechanicals in the shoulders so they would lift up and smoke would come out of that dress. So, you know, interesting projects, but things that would never be commercial enough to sell.
Well, I remember being over checking on something at the house in Palm Beach, and I walked in the dressing room, and there's a whole nother story. Dee's dressing room is every girl's dream. Oh my God, we'll get into that. But Dee was standing there, and there's 4 people, and she's on a little box, you know, having her Met Gala dress designed. And they're embroidering little beads. And this is where craftsmanship comes in, and what the NHA is all about is preserving these crafts that are really handcrafts. I mean, they're hand sewing all this on. And the dress was absolutely spectacular. But in relation to interiors, you know, I have sort of a similar story where Tommy's curtains that are in the Coral Bar we had all hand embroidered from Penn and Fletcher. And so when my daughter got married last year in Greece, her husband writes love notes to her, and she's collected them. And her veil, she wanted it to be embroidered on it, and we couldn't find anybody to embroider it. So my curtain maker, Penn and Fletcher, we sent his little notes, and the veil came back in his handwriting, all handwritten, with his love note on the back of her veil. So, you know, this is the crossover between interiors, between artistry, like everything you do. I'm sure Tommy feels the same way. You eat, sleep, drink it. You know, everything you pick out, you know, is a decision. And you can live beautifully, or you can live ordinary, you know? And it doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with style. It has to do with, you know, what makes you happy. Right?
Yeah, and I think there's not a lot of difference between, say, home designing and fashion designing, because you're dealing with fabrics, you're dealing with colors, you're dealing with a look and a feel and a certain type of ambiance you're eventually moving towards. So I think there's a real connection. And now there's really a connection between fashion and sports, and fashion and music, and fashion and Hollywood. And obviously, every successful Hollywood star and successful athlete wants a beautiful home or homes, and they have become really, I think, obsessed with not only how they look and what they wear, but how they live. Because lifestyle is maybe, in some cases, even more important than anything else. People want to live a certain lifestyle. It may be a little bit more conservative, maybe more flamboyant, but people are very obsessed with lifestyle. And we really believe that in building our brand, we are not just building a fashion brand, we're building a total global lifestyle brand. We have 2,000 stores in the world, and we're now just in the beginning of rethinking our stores to make them more, I would say, appropriate for today's lifestyle and today's shopping habits. But what I love is the reinvention. I like to reinvent the collections, the advertising, the stores, the fragrance, everything we do. And I really believe that keeps our brand very relevant. And I think it keeps people like Cindy in business, because people sometimes tire of living with the same colors, the same fabrics, the same furniture. So
But it's nice having the same designer because you don't have to break a new one in. You know, we've done 18 projects together. But the most annoying thing I find about working for Tommy is probably no matter where I go, and I want to be on vacation, and I'll be in, like at Christmas, we were in Southeast Asia, and I'm in Thailand and on the top of this mountain, and then somebody comes around the corner in a Tommy t-shirt. And it's like, wait, I'm trying to get away from this for a couple of weeks. Or the Great Wall of China, and I come around the corner, and like there's somebody in a Tommy t-shirt. And it's funny because I always send him pictures. And I'm like, I can't escape you. And then he says, that's a knockoff. How is that, seeing your name on everything?
I'm very critical of the work, so I'm always looking at ways to improve it. So I look at something, even though it has my name on it, I'm not like, oh, it's got my name on it. I'm thinking about that button should have been a little bit lower, and that pocket should have been a little bit smaller.
You should see Tommy's drawers in his closet. You know, you open, we designed them this way, but it's also, you know, you open the drawer and then all the sunglasses are all lined up, and then the next is all the pocket scarves are all, and you know, it's that attention to detail that makes the difference. You know,
Well, I like to think that my
it's hard on the
dressing room
designer, but
is like a boutique, like a store, so I could go in and choose whatever, but I'm a creature of habit. I wear white shirts and blue shirts, and I'm pretty preppy classic. But
well, Basil and I were at the AmFAR party, and we were talking to Tom Ford, who's a friend of Tommy's, and Basil and Tom were having this discussion about French cuffs, and you know how men's jewelry were always cufflinks, and now there's not a lot of shirts that have French cuffs anymore, right? And that's really, I mean, you should bring that back, because I think that for men are loving having jewelry, and you should.
yeah.
See, there you go. There you go.
I think they're too complicated for a lot of people who are rushing to get to work
Right.
or rushing to get to school. So I think they're for a certain audience, but certainly for today's gentleman.
Right. It is a very gentlemanly thing, and we need to bring gentlemen back. So Tommy's house in Palm Beach, you know, people always ask, well, what's the inspiration for the house or whatever? I think, you know, when I go to a house, I sit in the house, and it actually talks to me in a way. And I love inside, outside houses, and that's why this house is so appealing, because you've got the ocean on one side, you've got the intercoastal on the other side. And Tommy's inspiration was sort of an updated Slim Aarons. So I had to take that and run with it. But what I think we both love and why we get along in our design is, the classic element about bringing the house back to its original best form. Tommy's house was all coral stone, and thus the name is the Coral House. And his house in Mystique is called Palm Beach, interestingly enough. So we coral stoned this whole house, and Barbara made this amazing fountain, and for the driveway, and it used to drive Tommy crazy because the other one was not on center. And so we had to, everything has to be symmetrical, which makes me feel more comfortable as well. I don't know about everybody else, but I like symmetry. But the house is quite beautiful.
We've been very fortunate because we've had the opportunity to do a lot of these projects together and to basically spread our wings and do them from top to bottom the way we wanted to see them turn out.
Yeah, they've been incredible projects. This project, I'll tell you about Dee's Closet now. So it's, this is like the dream closet. You walk in and there's a glass cabinet, and it's all Judith Lieber handbags, and then it's Hermes handbags, and it's like being in a boutique. And Dee also designs shoes, and there's a whole wall that goes 10 feet high, and with picture lights, and all her shoes are on display. And if you have the room and you have the space, I hate hiding things away, things that you love. It's nice to see them. We did a dressing room for Dee where we had actually mannequins, and some of these phenomenal dresses, instead of being stuck in a closet, were on these mannequins in the dressing room. And, don't you always like seeing these beautiful pieces of, I know you have to put your jewelry in a safe sometimes, but, I'd rather have it in a drawer that's glass and I can see it, and it makes me excited. And now Tommy has a dream closet too, where it's finally all in one place. We have done a number of closets where in Greenwich, everything was behind these doors and there wasn't enough room, and we opened the door and there was a button you pressed, and it was a dry cleaning rack that would come down and go into the attic and go back up, so you could go, okay, holiday jackets, boom, zzz, and they were all stored upstairs, and then they would come down, and that was pretty clever, I thought of myself.
It works. But you need the height, because I think at the top you needed like 20 feet from floor to ceiling.
Inspiration also comes from travel, and I think that's the most important thing. I think that's what, inspired me the most. I mean, my passport's probably my most important thing besides my children and my dog and Basil. And so you learn so much. And like I said earlier about collecting resources, I was at Salone in Milan, and our business is really fun because we get to go, like Fashion Week is in all these great places, New York, Paris. So is Design Week, and it's in Milan. And then Bill and I just came back from London and Paris for Design Week. And, you see all the new collections, just like the fashion show people. So, and that's where you find all these new inspirations. And most of my photographs are not of people, they're of, entablatures on the ceiling and, marble inlay and all of that. So, don't you think travel's like one of, except you end up buying houses every place you travel.
I think travel is very inspirational because you have the opportunity to see things that maybe you won't see at home. And there are craftspeople in every single country who specialize in certain objects and certain things. So it's a learning experience, but it's an exploration, and if you're curious, it fills that void.
I'll give you two examples. So Dee and Tommy love Capri, and Dee, when we were doing her dining room here, she was like, I want it to feel like Capri. I love lemons. So I was lucky enough when I was in my 20s to meet this fellow Philippe, who is Accents of France, and he does the most beautiful lattice work in the world. He did the renovation of the Ritz in the Ritz Gardens, all that lattice work. That's Philippe. He now lives in LA, actually. But, and then my daughter, luckily, she was like Emily in Paris. She lived with her guest Bay friend in Maman and worked for de Gournay in London and Paris. And she ran around for 2 years, and she lived on the sofa bed, and he had the bedroom. And she was the best man at his wedding this year. And he works for Hermes, and his husband works for LVMH. But she, worked for de Gournay and has that sensibility. And we came up with this whole lemon vignettes for the dining room. So we had trellis work, we had mirror behind the trellis work, so it sparkled at night when you had candles lit. And then we had panels from de Gournay of the lemon inspiration from Capri. And then Dee found this amazing mirrored table. But it's the mix of things that make things interesting. It's jeans and a silk shirt. It's, for interiors, the lattice work, the mirror, then a sisal rug. To bring it down, you bring it up. It's not, things that are pure are really, really boring. They say brown furniture is out. Well, yeah, if you go into a room with all brown furniture, it's out. If you go to a room with all metal furniture, you don't like it. You go to a room with all white furniture, and, unless it's really interesting. So it's really about being able to curate the mix of things to create exciting fashion or exciting interiors, I think.
We're on the move, you could say, because we're moving things around all the time.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that with art as well, where we move art from one home to another or one space to another. And it makes it interesting because you have the opportunity to live in a room in a new way every so often. And sometimes it's every 6 months, sometimes it's every 4 years. But I think it's also part of the journey.
The Nantucket, Historical Association, it's trying to keep all these arts alive and keep them in people's minds, and that's so very important. I mean, who doesn't love a Nantucket loom blanket, right? I mean, it's an iconic thing. Everybody should have one. And I'm thinking about my Kips Bay room last year, if anybody here has seen Kips Bay. Yeah? Okay. It's, people like, oh, I don't like shell. And it's like, no, this is not about shell. What this was about is grotto work. Like is an iconic in Italy and even in England and Scotland. Anything that was a dreary, dark space, people would have the time, like Sailor's Valentines, and they'd take these shells and they'd make these beautiful, take something that was really dreary in a white box and turn it into something extraordinary. And that's what my room at Kips Bay was about. It wasn't about shell, it was about sort of the artistry of how you can use this in a new way. So this was a really old, historic idea, and then you take it and you twist it, and I turned it into a bedroom. And some of the things that I found interesting, because with Kips Bay you can get out things that you can't get out on clients, most clients, you can, and you're there to inspire, but the panels in that room were painted in China, shipped to India, embroidered in India, rolled up here, then put into frames here, then on the walls. And so, like, that whole journey, you sit there and you're like, oh. And the day, I think had to be photo ready on Wednesday, and the panels arrived 3 days earlier. And I unrolled them, and you didn't get to do a strike off to check the colors or anything like that. And I unrolled them, and I was, amazing. So I called Hannah at de Gournay on the phone just to say, oh my God, I love this so much, because most people only hear, it's a disaster, how can you help me? But I was like so just grateful for these panels, and I forgot that there's a 7-hour time difference, so I woke her up at like 3 in the morning and she thought somebody had died. And I was like, no, these are so beautiful. That's the thing that excites me about my business, my interior business, is just, finding inspiration from old ideas and making them new.
Is that why those panels were so expensive?
Yeah.
They took a trip around the world?
They did. They absolutely did. They were incredibly. But, so,
They're beautiful. Panels are beautiful. Fantastic.
so what's your favorite room in the house?
I think the Coral Bar.
The Coral Bar.
Because it's,
Because it's a bar.
but it's also like bright orange, and I like the lacquer. I like being able to look out at the lake from the bar. And all of our guests love that. They love it, I think, the most.
So this Coral Bar, well, that's Tommy's dressing room, but the Coral Bar is the same color because his dressing room is sort of right off the bar, which is convenient. So, but the Coral Bar, this is where we have this symbiotic kind of relationship where we lacquered the whole Coral Bar, and we had some mirrored panels in it so it would bring in light, and it was a former library. And we kept the bookshelves, and Tommy has all these collections of books that are signed by, Karl Lagerfeld, and, it's just not regular books. These are books that are all signed by people he's worked with over the years. So those are on display on one side, and we lacquered it all. And then we looked at each other and we're like, I think we need some more bamboo in here. There was a little bit of bamboo furniture on some things, and we applied bamboo on top of all the lacquer work to accent it, to kind of make you feel like you were in Florida, you were on vacation, you want to have fun, you want to party. It was like this room was, became very sexy and very detailed. And those are the things that I hope people say about my rooms, is that, I don't like walking to a room and being told the whole story the minute you walk in, these double height staircases. And I like kind of understated, where you sit there and then all of a sudden you quietly sort of observe the room, and you start finding things and oh, wow, look at that. And oh, I didn't know this was there. And then, and it kind of reveals itself instead of, on your first impression. It's sort of, houses should develop, relationships should develop. Anyway, that's, I had a client call me today, and she just sold one of her house, and she was all upset. It's like, oh, I sold my house. And I said to her, hey, this is exciting. This is your next adventure. And I know Tommy's take is always, don't look back, always move forward. And you have a chance to do something new. And most of his houses have been sold complete, right? Furnishings in most of all of them.
Completely furnished,
Yeah.
with the art on the walls, the knives, the forks.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just convenient for the buyer to be able to move into a house completely finished. They could just bring their toothbrushes. So I think that it's sort of a new phenomenon. I don't think that happened in years past. I think it's happening now because people are so busy, they want as much convenience as possible. So if they can buy a house completely furnished, top to bottom, they would, I would say, vote for that over buying something that they would have to furnish from the beginning.
Yeah, actually, Basil and I had a horse farm up in Millbrook, New York, and we were only using it 5 weekends a year. And this was a house that needed to be lived in, not just visited, So someone made us an offer we couldn't refuse, but they wanted everything. And I think part of the reason why they bought the house was because their monogram was the same as ours. And they wanted the sheets, they wanted the towels. I could have sold them my underwear, I think. Yeah, I walked out with maybe 6 sets of dishes and a couple of things, and I said, don't turn back, because, the things that were in that house also fit that house. You can always find new things. You can always, that's part of the adventure, of what we do. It's a perpetual treasure hunt. So, I always say, and I think Tommy's the same way, it's not really reinventing yourself. It's just moving forward all the time, You change, Your houses should change, your clothes change, you know, and there's things that stay constant that we love that are classic, but, you know, change is good.
Change is good, and I think that within sort of where one lives, it's important to refresh, because otherwise it gets, for us at least, it gets very boring and mundane. So I think refreshing, where you don't necessarily have to redecorate the entire home, but refreshing is important.
So does anyone have any questions? I'm sure there should be questions for Tommy and I. Yes?
Oh, my house in Nantucket. Well, the house in Nantucket was, we had the house for 25 years. It was at top of Cobblestone Road, and
Cliff Road, top of Cliff Road.
yeah,
Is that one of the highest points in Nantucket, top of Cliff Road?
Lincoln
Yeah,
Circle.
Lincoln Circle, right.
But it looked over, yeah, Lincoln Circle. It looked over the beaches and the harbor, walking distance to Cliffside Beach
Yeah.
and the Galley Restaurant. Very safe for our children because it was sort of a circle, like not a dead end, but maybe a cul-de-sac, and close to town. That house was redone head to toe also, but perfect location.
Yeah, that was a dream house. That was a beauty. That's a beauty.
But
Uh-oh.
I'm a historian by hobby, and
Yeah.
I just love design, and this is so fun. So I'm wondering, we touched on the subject of cufflinks and bringing back sort of an old world style for people, gentlemen, ladies. I love that, and I really hope for that for our society, because it's just so nice to go around and you know that people have good manners, you know, they're polite, they're kind. That is just, I really long for that time. And I'm wondering, Tommy, would you think of having like a specific style of your brand that would have cufflinks and would, you know, kind of bring back for people who would go to events that are specifically to, you know, maybe a ball or a gala and things like that?
Learn the art of being gentleman, dressing gentlemanly.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because men obviously are more set in their ways. So we make tuxedos the same way tuxedos were made in the 30s and 40s. We make them with grosgrain or satin lapels. We make them with buttons for suspenders. We make them in the same type of fabric, which is sometimes a worsted wool. We usually put a grosgrain stripe down the leg. The thing that changes sometimes is fit. In the 80s, the shoulders were very, very wide. The lapels were wider. Then they became narrower. Then the pants slimmer. But men love tradition, so we're really continuing to do men's suits and men's tuxedos in a very traditional way, but always focusing on fit and quality.
Yes?
Excuse me, musical inspiration, specifically with musicians like you mentioned, Mick Jagger, as well as we saw in your sizzle reel collaborations with artists like Aaliyah and Snoop Dogg. Has music inspired your design process over the years? I'm sure, but in your 18 projects together, could you guys shed a little light on any musical inspiration?
Well, I've always been inspired by pop culture. And when I first moved to New York City from Elmira, New York, I had the opportunity to meet Andy Warhol. Andy brought me into his factory, his studio, and at the time, all of his art was that of painting celebrities. So everyone from Grace Kelly to Sylvester Stallone to the obvious Liz Taylor, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis. And I thought that was really cool, because I thought if I were to connect myself to celebrity, then it keeps the brand relevant, and also the celebrities' fans would also come to my brand. So early on, in the 80s, I started dressing musicians. And the musicians, from Bruce Springsteen to, Britney Spears was our first Tommy girl. I met Beyonce when she was 16. She performed for us during a fashion show.
She went to your house in Mystique, too.
Yeah, she visited our house in Mystique, and then we partnered with Jennifer Lopez. But we did a lot of collaborations and a lot of advertising with celebrities. And that was before magazines used celebrities on the covers. They would only use supermodels. But now they only use celebrities. And brands from Louis Vuitton to Dior to Ralph Lauren to Calvin Klein, they all use celebrities. But I have to say we were maybe one of the first. And we did it due to the fact that the idea was to keep the brand relevant and keep it youthful, keep it interesting, but also attract the fans of the talent.
He's being a little modest, because Star Brand, Tommy sort of invented Star Brand, as he was saying, is it's just of taking, these iconic, up-and-coming, future iconic people and branding them, associating them with clothing and perfume and everything else. So, you were one of the first.
It was very early I was actually in the 80s. See, I started my first business in my hometown of Elmira, New York, when I was 18. I had saved $150 from working nights in a gas station, and I had a Volkswagen Bug, and I drove it 5 hours from my hometown into New York City. I bought 20 pairs of bell-bottom jeans. I brought the jeans back to my hometown, and I sold them to my friends, and then I opened a shop called People's Place. It became successful right away. So then I opened shops on college campuses in New York State, like on the Cornell campus, Cortland, Auburn, Syracuse. And at that point, all of my friends were graduating. We were all graduating from high school. And my parents wanted to know where I was thinking of going to college. And I said, I'm not going. And they were very upset because they said, you have to go to college. And I said, no, I have to be in business. I want to be in business, because if I go to college and I sit in a classroom, all I'm going to be thinking about is how to build a business, and I'm building a business already. So, there's another part to the story, and the other part of the story is that I was not a great student in school. And I thought, and my family thought, and my teachers thought I was maybe a slacker, and I was not very smart, and I also believed that. But what I didn't realize was that I was dyslexic. And dyslexia was not diagnosed at that point. Nobody really knew what it was. I just had trouble reading and had trouble even looking at math equations, whether it was addition, subtraction, division, and then algebra threw me over the cliff. I had no idea what was going on, because when you're dyslexic and you look at words or numbers, they sort of bounce around the page, and it's difficult to put them together. But I felt that with what I discovered later on was dyslexia, I could build a business. And during my high school years, I would sit in class and daydream. I would dream about how to become successful in life. And I thought I would be a ski patrol, and then I thought I would be an auto mechanic, and then I thought I would be a football player, and then so I had all these ideas of what I wanted to do, but I stumbled upon being in the fashion business, and it was something that I thought I was pretty good at. So when I was like 19 years old, I had learned about this, Halston, Bill Blass, Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, Perry Ellis, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to build my own brand. And my family and friends said, well, you don't have a college education, you don't have connections with these people, you don't know how to make a pattern or use a sewing machine, you'll never be successful. And my father said, unless you go to learn a trade or to go to college, you'll never be successful. So my father and I didn't really get along for quite a while, and I said, I'm going to build this business, and I'm going to hire people who I will need around me to do whatever I don't know how to do. So that was with my $150 investment that is now $9 billion plus a year after many years.
It's the American dream. Shark Tank would love Tommy, right?
But part of that was also never giving up. And there were days when it was not easy. I had a bankruptcy when I was 23 years old, and I taught myself then how to understand how to read a balance sheet and be a business person. And that was sort of my master's, teaching myself how to do that. But I always had a dream in my mind of what I wanted to be and how I wanted to get there. I pictured it all. And as I became more successful, I would create new dreams and new images of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So that's sort of the side story.
I think there also is a little fraction of, and I don't think it's luck, it's observation. When I first started my first store in Greenwich, Connecticut, I wanted to do something. Remember R. Brook in New York? Those great stores. There was Charlotte Moss, R. Brook, and Howard Slotkin. And my mother-in-law, I went to England to go on a buying trip for my first store, and my mother-in-law said, oh, you should just go stay with my friend, Nina. And I was like, okay. So I go and I arrive, and it's Nina Campbell. I had no clue, I was in my 20s. And then Nina introduced me to all these people in London, William Eward, Ron Lighting, all these people. And, it's also about being observant and always being curious. But Tommy is the American dream, and he's a nice guy on top of that, too. So nice guys do finish first.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I just wanted to say, in honor of, the NHA, one of the things that's important is candle making. So all of you have a Rinfret candle to take home with you, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.